Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Welcome to a new week. It is, do you know what? 6 years ago today, me and Mr. M, we actually left the UK to come to Portugal with two of our children. We now got three children, and I just saw it come up on my Facebook. So yeah, what an auspicious day for us anyway. And I wonder how auspicious it is for you. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about who do you sometimes compare yourself to, and also is it useful? Is it a useful exercise? How does that work for you? When has it worked really well? Maybe when it hasn't. I'm really keen to sort of find out your views and also the views of my guests, Benjamin Stubbs and also Owen Lloyd Martin, who've both been on the show before and are both fantastic. Now, before we really get going, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's watched and supported the show so far. So this is week 3. I've already done 8 episodes with people that are absolutely amazing and awesome. And you might recognize a lot of them because if you look actually on the channel, the Barefoot Broadcast, there's hundreds of interviews, and many of these interviews have been with the guests that we've got right now. So this is like an ongoing passion of mine. But I've actually received quite a lot of messages from people behind the scenes. So we've had well wishers sort of thanking us for the show. We've also had people sending questions and responses from the show. So in particular, there were a couple last week that really maybe triggered memories in people, but also that helped them somehow address different aspects of their own healing process. In fact, I can say the show I did on Thursday, where I was chatting with both Jenny and Donna, brought up some things that came up in a healing session. I was doing a coaching session with somebody yesterday. I was being coached, and I got in touch with my frozen baby. So there's lots of different things that have been coming up for people, and I really do appreciate everyone that sent a message with their own stories and things like that. I think as this show evolves, we'll create some more space so that we can actually answer your questions live online. So if you've got something coming up for you that you'd like some guidance on, a little bit like live agony aunting or live coaching, I'm sure we'll do a bit of that. And also we'll do some shows about your actual unique stories too. So please do just keep staying in contact. It's really great. All the people who are on the show can be connected and contacted. The ones that have given me addresses that they're happy to be contacted at, they're always in the show notes, every single show, whether they show up or not. So anyway, thanks so much for all of your support so far. I can see we've got Ben and Owen waiting in the wings, and I know they've probably got lots to say about comparisons and how useful they are. In fact, I know one of them's been doing some research about it this weekend, and has brought up some theory that he'd like to talk through with us here today, about like comparison theory. I'm sure he's got the proper title of it. But anyway, let's bring on our wonderful 2 guests, Benjamin Stubbs and Owen Lloyd Martin.
We've got a crowd.
yeah, we've got Mr. M's beautiful sound pad here. So I've also got a wah, 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 wah. And if anything musical and magical arises, we might do this. A bit of magical pixie dust. I always like
That's
that.
like an epiphany sound, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll do that. In fact, I'm just going to put you two together. That looks good. So, Ben, I'd like you to meet Owen, and Owen, meet Ben.
Hello, Owen. You're on this side for me.
High five.
Yeah, can we do that?
We've got some comments coming in, and welcome to everyone. The comment coming in is from Mr. M. I'm sure he'll probably join us, knowing him. He does like to have his little say as well. So not little, but he's very meaningful say. So thanks for joining us. So how are you both doing? How was your weekend? And what are your first thoughts about this as a subject? Like, who do you sometimes compare yourself to? Ben, you look like you were absolutely busting to say something, so I'll let you go first.
No, I'm just busting to be on the show. It's once a fortnight, so I kind of really look forward to it. So it's like just here. No, the funny thing is, because obviously when we got sent the kind of question, and I always think, well, isn't our own kind of evolution built on comparison in some way? Like, if you think about it, if we we don't know yes without no. So we compare yes, and so I think in some ways comparison, to be concisely for me or succinctly, is always going to be there. I think it's just normally, I think from a human perspective, we get our egos or our, by ego, I mean, the voice in your head type thing, not you're big headed. I think we get the concept of ego in this show. Totally. But the ego is the one that then uses that comparison to beat ourselves up. And I think that's where I think comparison is natural and healthy, because you wouldn't know like haircut you liked until you saw it in someone else. And you thought, oh, actually, I quite like that. And then you then compare in that sense. But it's our human ego that then creates, oh, well, that means they're better than us, so I'm worse than them. Then, so I think for me, comparison is natural and we're always going to do it. It's just being aware of when it becomes self-defeating. Yes. That's a kind of, in a nutshell, that's what I think comparison is for me.
Perfect. Now, Owen, I know you've done some research on this. Tell us about your little journey in this. Oh, sorry, your big journey. I'm just saying big because where I said Carl had a little say or might want to come on for a little say, he's asked for it. So my apologies if I use diminutive language at all. Owen, you've been looking at it this weekend a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah, it's strange when you told me about the subject of today's and one of the things that I've always said is that the more I get to meet other people is the more I get to learn about myself. Yeah. I've always kind of said that, really, because it's a big thing, big part of my life. But I've been looking at a couple of mental health blogs this weekend, actually, and there's the gentleman that pops up in there, is a psychologist, Leon Festinger. And I'm just reading. I'm actually reading from my notes here, and he recognised a primitive drive within us all to compare our opinions and abilities to those of others, so that we can better understand ourselves. And it goes a lot further on to that. It dives right into the negatives and the positives, and also it dives into also social media and that's effect and that effect on comparisons as well, which I think is a big thing. If we look at the past maybe 10 years and the rise and the rise of social media, with your influences and whatnot. And I think this is a big thing. So it's a really, really good subject. So yes, I spent most of yesterday having a look at loads of different mental health blogs, really, and got some really, really good notes here. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, so we've got like a definition of it then. Thank you, both of you. So it gives us the polarity to work out what we might like. So, we see something we like or we see something we don't like. Very rarely do I look at things without judging anything, actually, to be honest. Yeah. Now, I'm always like that, like don't like that. And it's almost like going into this database of things that define me because I like them, and things that I really don't like and I'm desperately moving away from. But obviously, we all know that the law of attraction also says that what we focus on, we bring about. So there's also lots of things that I've been disliking secretly in my head, which have been following me around because I've focused on the things I don't like. But it's a whole nother show, isn't it? So yeah, it's something that can be used positively and negatively. What about in our own lives? Like, Ben, what's your experience of where you've, like, if you got some good experiences of where you've compared yourself to somebody in a really beneficial way, or when you've like turned it upside down and back to front?
Just to go back to your thoughts, because it's a really good point about, just to go back a sec, I know we're not talking about the law of attraction, but I want to just say about the power of your thoughts is it's only with emotion that gives it potency. So you're allowed, because then the problem with all this spiritual things as well, we then panic trying to suck our thoughts back in. And it's just, do you know what I mean? But it's just only because it's a good point. She said that I don't, because sometimes people have that kind of, again, the toxic positivity we're on about. They've got to be happy all the time, only positive thoughts. Yeah. So that one, it's just being aware of them. If you're aware of it, it's neutral. There's nothing. Yes. It's when you've got potency, which is not what normally happens. Do you know what's really funny? It's raining here. I've got to say this. It's pouring down, and a butterfly is flapping outside my window. That's so beautiful. It is. Are you going to let it in? Can you let? Well, no. I think it's a transformational sign, isn't it? It's normally butterflies don't fly in the rain. It's literally just fluttering outside my window.
It's a sign, Ben. It's a sign.
It is, totally, isn't it? No, I do agree. I've had loads of things like that. I think it's just transformation, isn't it? I think, so going back to what you said about, I just wanted to point that thing about thoughts, because people always panic about it. They discover the power of their thoughts.
That is very helpful.
Because they just say awareness neutralizes them anyway. So as long as you're aware of them, we can't not have thoughts, but you just don't want to kind of engage them with emotion. That's what people normally do. You just want to, if you want to engage them, engage the positive side more than
yes. No, it's a good point, because when I dislike something, I usually have an aversion to it, and so it's like how can you like you say, how can you have an awareness of something without, loading it with emotion and context?
Well, even if you're just aware of that it's potent. I mean, the thing is, it's all about all we're doing with this is all self-awareness, isn't it? So kind of, and it links with the comparison thing as well, like the idea of just being aware of how we're feeling. Because what normally happens is we kind of then become this self-fulfilling like feedback loop where we're then angry at being angry. It's just it's okay. It's just a gentle, neutral awareness, because source doesn't judge. We don't get judged. The only ones that judge us are ourselves. So I think on this path, and we're trying to become more aware and give something back to humanity and help shift it. We've got to realise that we're only our worst self-critic, so we can't. Comparison with myself, then it's just I think with doing the type of coaching, what I found the hardest, been the most triggering with comparison, because I want to sit here saying that I'm perfect all the time. Hard to believe I'm not. But like is other coaches. I think because when you see. I find my hardest comparison is seeing other coaches and what they do in their social media and their Facebooks is so kind of, so where I don't really get, like I know some people do, the envy of other people's lives on Facebook and Insta, personal lives. I think the thing that I've spotted triggers me probably the most and I have to be aware of is other coaches, that just seem to like have really slick videos and, and they've got like loads of comments, and the thing is, my life is good and my business is going all right. It's going well. I mean, so but it's just I just don't like doing it. Like I do the odd 20-minute like live where I've got something to say, but I just don't like doing it. And then I think that's a comparison. I think, should I be doing it? Because they look more professional than me. And then when you have a wobbly day, or you have a day where you don't have as much business coming in, or you have something, then you kind of go, oh, maybe I should have done what they've done. So. Honestly, for me, the kind of negative side of comparison is that. But then also to flip it, to kind of flip it is to go, well, what could I do? What do they do which I do like? Actually, I quite like that. And could I outsource it? Could I just give someone the business to do my social media because I don't like doing it? So there is always a way to shift and change. But you said, honestly, that is probably the thing that triggers me more than personal social media. Like what Owen was saying that we have over the past 10 years. It's probably more the comparison of where they're at compared to where I'm at, and then are they more higher up the pecking order than me? So people are going to ask them for podcasts, not me, because they've got more. Do you know what I mean? It sounds so silly to say out loud, but it's them thoughts we don't really want to kind of say out loud. But that's probably what I feel. I think sometimes.
Yeah, I have to say that's one of my hardest things I've had to deal with. Is actually, and I didn't even realize. I didn't even like. Consider this title at all until we started the show, because I think it's much more fun from my perspective when I'm completely like sort of ill-considered about it. I like to just see what comes up in the moment, but now I'm focusing on it. I realize that achievement and feeling a lack of achievement in comparison to who I see doing similar things is a huge stick that I used to beat myself with. And it's one that I've got like an up and down relationship with. So it'd be good to see what comes out of this, and as we talk about this a bit more. What about you, Owen? Like, who do you find, like, how is your relationship with comparisons?
Well, I don't know. I've kind of found it difficult in the sense if we look at social media and my own my own kind of personal social media accounts. I originally started, if we use Facebook, well, it is Facebook. I started my Facebook account going back some 14 years ago, but I actually started it because the relationship that I had for 17 years is split up, and I had my two daughters. And I literally set up my Facebook account so that my daughters would have virtually a video diary of what I was doing. But I actually noticed over the years is that I was focusing less on letting them know what I was doing. And I was more concentrating on what other people were posting. And I was kind of reacting on that because I had the thought that maybe more people will view what I was doing because of that. So I kind of moved away from posting the personal message, as it were, to actually trying to gain more of an audience. And that was because I was looking at what other people were posting, what other people were doing. And as I say, I mean, just recently in the past week, I've actually cancelled a lot of my social media. I don't actually, apart from obviously being on the show and doing things like this, I'm moving away from social media because I want to focus on what really matters, which is myself and my immediate friends and family. And you don't necessarily need social media for that. So it's been and obviously when this subject came up, and in particular the research that I did over the weekend, it's kind of like an alarm bell for me, really. And also it was confirming that potentially I made the right choice in what I did by moving off social media, because I wasn't really there to get the likes. I was there really to put a message forward. And I mean, yes, I did do some posts and some lives, which was explaining what I was doing, in particular with my cooking and things like that. But I've tended now, well, I do know now that I'm going to say, when I do go back to social media, it will be a completely different thing that I'm doing.
Okay. Oh, that sounds exciting. Find out what. That's really cool. Well, one of the things that I've noticed, like with comparisons, is it's something that's always been in my life. And I don't know about you guys if you've got siblings, but the comparison game started really early on in my life, when I was always compared to my little sister. And like it, and it's a huge thing. I know you've got nephews, haven't you, that you take quite an active role in their lifespan. When you see people that come from a set, it's almost impossible not to judge who is doing more in a particular set than the other. And one of the things I found as a child was my parents had, bless them, because this is what obviously felt right for them to do. They'd compared, they'd said that I was the clever one and that my sister was the loving one, which kind of played to the obvious skills as my parents noticed them. And yet I found my whole life, I've really struggled to be, or this is how I felt. I felt like I've had to prove that I've been loving. And I've also felt that I've had to almost work harder at making friends and things like that, because the reputation that was set up for me was that I had my head in the clouds, that I was intelligent, intellectual, and that I was just a bookworm. And my sister had all the love and all of the kind of relationships. She was known as being the girl that had all the friends and stuff. And so right from a word go, that's been almost like my nemesis. And and actually I had a chat with our good friend Dee, who's been on the show, Dee Brody. And we were talking about like frozen babies, which was one of the top subjects that came up last week. Where a lady called Donna Marie, who was adopted as a baby, was talking about how at some level her baby got really frozen in development, and almost stopped reacting to things, as a safety mechanism. And I realized that I've got this kind of very mistrustful side to me where I think I'm on edge because there are comparisons and I don't quite know what to do with them. Does that ring any bells with anyone?
I think as well, firstly, the comparison thing is, we could kind of change that word for competition, I think.
Yes.
They're very, very similar.
Definitely.
In
really?
their kind of, yeah. And I think my dad's always said since we were younger that he's not like one like, right, get out in there. But he's always been like, he said healthy competition's good because, again, going back to evolution, not the fittest wins. But everything's about balance. I think the same show, we kind of come back to the same things. But it's about, we need competition, but then that's when our egos will kick in and our self-limiting beliefs, where they then feed off these other people. And I think all we're doing now is I think the power of this kind of new movement, for lack of a better word, is awareness. As soon as we're aware of what we're feeling, as soon as we're aware, then it loses its power. And going back to then about installing, because as you know, I'm more about the mindset and how just seeing the brain, and not to kind of dehumanize it, but like seeing the brain as a muscle that we've just installed. Like your mum and dad said those things to you, so you've installed that in you.
I did. I totally installed it.
Excuse me. So you installed that, which is also just because we don't do any different, do we? Especially at that age. But what's great is we can reinstall, we can change, and I think that's the power of this movement, is empowering people to go. One is the key is the awareness. Oh, I see what I've done there. I feel this because of this.
Yes.
But then I think then sometimes in this work we can get lost in the kind of delving through, and so the shadow work. Like Evan, is that there's a balance. Some people I know have been doing shadow work for like 15 years and look no different than they did 15 years ago, because what they've done is that their egos jumped onto that, and then they've got lost in the shadow work thinking they're fixing themselves. So I think for me, it's the
that
mindset.
is a very real phenomenon. I know loads people. And
some people I know. Oh, sorry.
And that's not my reality. Like I make it really clear to myself, if I'm still trying to work myself out in 5 years' time, then I've picked the wrong techniques or whatever. I mean, it's just, I would think I would get bored of it.
Yeah. I think the idea of it is just because it's all about then going this again, the comparison. Oh, I feel this. So how do I want to feel? You know, what things am I, and it's all about that kind of just shift in perspective. And what's great is all the kind of, you know, even if you're going back from the spiritual stuff or the science, where Joe Dispenza's done brain scans on, he calls it metacognition, but I think it's got a few different definitions. But the idea of his metacognition is they've done brain scans, and when people have realized old patterns, or they've become aware of it and observed it, the neuroplasticity is loosened, the pathway is loosened up. So he was kind of surmising from that obviously there's just been the awareness of the old pattern. And it's then just, and that's why you said about this show is all about, not about positivity, but you know, but the idea of optimism, where can we go, what can we do, rather than what we can. And I think, so for me, for you, your parents, so what you said about siblings, I did, but luckily I think as well, going back to the comparison thing, is that my brother and me are very different, like very different. So it's hard to compare us. Not that it matters in the way, but just to give people some context, like my brother is straight with 2 kids, I'm gay. And so like straight away, I didn't have the brotherly comparison of 2 alpha males competing. And actually, even though we're very different, we got on very, very well. And then my nephews are very similar. One is similar to my brother, and one is similar to me. Like one that's similar to me, we went to watch Barbie yesterday. He really wanted to go and see Barbie. So we're like, I'll take you, because I love Barbie movie. But like, so for me, it's all about awareness. The key to a lot of healing is awareness. So you're aware of what you're feeling, and then and making that shift, you know, bit by bit. And that's where we're doing this all together from all our different skills and techniques and whatnot. But I think the big power is what you did for your story, Louisa, was just the awareness of it is the biggest step.
The awareness that I've been allowing myself to think that I had to be more lovable and add to it in such a way that actually wasn't really who I was. I think I was quite lovable in my own way anyway, you know. And it's that realization. I love what you're saying about the awareness, because that's come up twice now, isn't it? So it's being like where we can be aware that we're not putting too much energy onto the things we don't like, and putting our awareness and energy onto the things that we do want to manifest. But then becoming aware of the patterns allows the brain to start to rewire itself and to function differently. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I know Owen wants to speak, so I'll hand over to Owen in 1 second. So just to kind of clarify that point was is I remember there's a lot of teachers out there, and one of my favourites is Abraham Hicks, and one of the things they talk about with this is this, where if you've got a thought and it's and you're thinking about something and it's negative, source doesn't agree. So if you're going, oh, I'm aware of this feeling, oh, why have I not let it go? That feeling is your disconnection, that source does not think the same. So that's been really helpful for me. So when I'm thinking about something about myself, like, you know, about the way I look, and I'm like, source doesn't agree. Thanks.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So that's been really good for me to spot, because with us, we want to fix ourselves, for lack of a better word. But then what we do then is the ego kind of sneaks in with a little puppet. So it's just being aware. It's just something we're always going to be on that tightrope. But when we're aware of it, if we fall off, we just get back on and then try our best. Sorry, Owen. I'll hand over
to you. Just going back to the whole thing about family and growing up. I'm the middle child of 8. And my elder brothers and sisters were very, very sporty. And it didn't interest me at all. And I think I had a lot of pressure from my dad, is that, why aren't you doing this? You know, why can't you run as fast as your brothers and sisters? Why can't you play a sport? You know, I got this all of the time. And And truly, where I excelled at school was actually the theatre side, the drama side of it. And thankfully, I had my mum, I had my mum to support me through that. And I must just quickly tell another side note on that about my mum, actually, is that she used to, the first time I went to visit my parents back in when they were in the UK, is that I had rather long dreadlocks. And my mum hated dreadlocks because she used the comparison from Jamaica as I had dreadlocks, so therefore I was going to be classed as a yardie and I was doing this, that, and the other. Whereas, as a matter of fact, I actually had my hair because it was the hairstyle I wanted. I didn't want to have the jerry curls. I didn't want to have it straightened. I didn't want the short afro. So I decided to grow my dreadlocks. So if I go to a party, when I was living in Yorkshire, I was invited to go back to Manchester to my mum and dad's wedding anniversary party. And I walked in through the door and immediately my two elder sisters came over to me and went, "Don't let mum see your hair like that. She'll go mad. She'll go mad." And I thought, well, it's my hair. I'll do what I want. And then my dad actually came over to me and went, "Owen, you can't come in here looking like that, You know what your mother will say."
Oh my God.
Seriously. And he actually said to me, "Go to the shop, buy yourself some scissors and cut it off." And I spent an hour and a half in the toilet cutting my dreads down to a shorter length. Went in, had the party, and it was great. But when I was leaving the party, I actually turned around to my mum and said, "Mum, you do realise that the next time you see me, I will have dreadlocks again." And it was another 20 years, coming on to 20 years, until, in fact, it was a year after I was married. Mum and Dad came over to the UK because they'd emigrated, well, they retired back in Jamaica. And they actually came over the year after I was married. And my mum was in the kitchen with me and I was cooking them a meal. And midway through, she actually turned around and she went, "Oh, and you know something? You take care of your hair. It looks really, really nice." And the reason why I say that is because it was that comparison, from her upbringing in Jamaica and seeing the yardies and the troubles and everything that happened in Jamaica, which was associated with the dreadlocks and everything else. She had that set in her mind. And I think that comes from not only just peer pressure, but the life that she lived in Jamaica. Whereas she didn't see me as me wanting to be my own individual self. And it was really, really touching and really, really nice for her to turn around to me and say, "Actually, it looks really, really nice. I'm proud of you." So that was kind of a flip from her having that comparison to the yardies and everything else, and actually seeing her son with a different hairstyle. And I think that was a big thing that impacted me way back then. But when people do actually turn around to me now, I've had it. They compare me. I've had plenty of times where I've been stood out in public and people come up to me and go, "Hey mate, have you got any weed to sell?" This comparison with me having dreadlocks and with my skin tone and everything else is that was the image that they had, rather than looking at the person themselves. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
I'm glad you did, and if you don't mind me dovetailing something onto that, because like what you're really talking about there, as far as I can hear, is that there's also like cultural comparisons.
Yes.
And there's relief in some cultures and stresses in others. So, for instance, before I met Carl, I was living in Indonesia for a while, and I actually felt the relief of not living in the context that I thought I was living in the UK. At that time, I wasn't married. I'd sold my house. I didn't have any children. I had a business, but I wasn't really enjoying it. And what's the point of doing that, right, if you're not enjoying your life? And so I decided to shift out to Indonesia, and the cultural context was so different that I felt really, really liberated, because and it was obviously me that was doing all the comparing when I was back home. I was seeing that in the area I was living in, that a lot of people were married, had a house, had a car, had a very regular life, which has never really appealed to me very much. But I was still comparing myself to my peers. And looking, especially, with social media, I probably did notice that a lot of the people I've gone to school with had kids and owned their own house and this, that, and the other. And the relief that I got when I was living in a completely different context was huge. It just felt like such a liberation. And funnily enough, like 9 months later, when I felt like I'd healed a lot of it, I went back to the UK and felt my energy plummet immediately, because it was my mental state of going back into that comparison. So what I needed to do was learn to shift that. But those cultural contexts and those contexts that we grow up in are really, really persuasive. So I just wanted to kind of feed that in.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because this is obviously because I went to Thailand. It's not dissing any of those retreats going away, but sometimes it's easy to be. I think I remember reading it somewhere. It's easy to be zen on a beach, like in the middle of nowhere. It's the real key, and I think that's why. I think we've all done that. There's nothing wrong with this in any way. Like we've all kind of gone out and found ourselves. But then when we've come back to our own towns, we're like, what? Because then we're like, because what all we're doing is we're picking up our energetic blueprint where we left it. So we're like, I'm leaving here. I'm going over there. And we will find aspects of ourselves. Then when we come back, we just fall into the same energetic patterns. And going back, Owen, to what you said about your mum, it's what I found is our parents do that. Like some comments you'd hear, you're like, similar in some ways. But what I kind of found in my head is a lot of times that softened a lot of, especially family comparisons, is a lot of it is out of love because they think it's for the right thing for you. She thinks you'll have a better life. You know this. I'm not, but like you think you have a better life with a different haircut. You know, and that's what it's softened when people judge my haircut or judge what I do. A lot of times from friends and families because they think my life will be better. They won't say these words. They are
doing it for the better, really. It's kind of like parental advice about more than anything, and out of love, it was out of love more than anything else, No,
we've got some comments coming in, so let's just read some of them out. Squire of the Shires is saying, hi everyone, another fresh week full of opportunity and potential. I totally with you on that one, thank you. And saying Louisa, Owen and Benjamin, kind of peace signs, hearts and love. And
oh yeah, we do one each.
There you go. A bit of snarkiness from Pete. My commiseration on sitting through the whole Barbie movie. I'm guessing Pete doesn't really like it very much. We caught glimpses of the kids watching it, and that was far more than enough. Oh, Pete, I take great joy in particular hairstyles. Yeah, I think we've got to love our hair. A timeless and versatile style still popular in 2023. The comb-over haircut has been around for almost a century. But it remains one of the most popular hairstyles for men in 2023. Carl is sporting that, and he rocks it, I think. Sarah's saying, you're just like your mother. Oh, my God. Yes, if you like it, then you start acting more like your mother. If you don't like it, then you start doing anything to be different to your mother. Both are not like you. The funny thing is, Sarah, I used to get, when my mum was upset with my dad, she would always say, you're just like your father. You're this. And then everything that was being put on my dad was just lumped onto me. And I hated it. Absolutely hated it. But yes, you raise a good point. We are often compared to our parents. What kind of effect has that had on you, and what have you observed about that?
I suppose I've gained my mum's compassion and empathy in a big way, because my mum, I like to call myself an observer more than anything else. I like to people watch and sit there. And as I said before, that's where the term comes from. The more I see and meet people, is the more I get to learn about myself. So I do find myself in various situations, social situations as well, is that I sit there and just scan the room or wherever I am just to see how people are. Yeah. And then if I see a particular moment, if it's a situation that I've ever found myself in, is I will look at the reaction of the person, and then I'll kind of rewind and look at the situation that I've been in as a third person looking in on it, and kind of break that all down and say, well, you did that, but maybe you could have done it differently because I saw somebody else do that and there was a great outcome. So I've always sat and watched and observed people and how they react to certain situations, because I found that a great help.
Yeah. Ben?
I think going back to the comparisons, off my mum, I take off my mum a lot. Like I look after, so my mum's side, Lawson's. So like she's lost her name, but they always joke that I'm one of them because, and it's a compliment because I really love my aunties and uncles. But I've been blessed with the Lawson wrinkles, so we've got very wrinkly eyes. I was like, damn you.
We must be related.
Well, just no, because they just very wrinkly. A lot of my cousins have had Botox now, but I'm not
Seriously?
going down that route just yet. Yeah.
It's interesting you said yet. My little sister's had a bit of that.
Well, the thing is, I get the feelings why, because obviously we got ice cream and stuff, but like, it's just funny, that's sort of. But I think, so for me, I see attributes of both sides for me, in the sense of my mum, I do look like her, and I have kind of quirks that she does. So is that genetically passed on, or just watched her when she's like, I'll get names of things wrong, like I remember when I discovered, or like started to have like, you know, the realizations. I was telling my friend who I live with, I was like, gee, I've had another effigy today, and she just listened, and she went, and I said it for months, this word effigy, and she went, what do you mean by effigy? And I went, you know, when you have an aha moment. She went, you mean epiphany, don't you? And I was like, oh yeah, epiphany. So the other one's is very different, and I was like, oh, I mean, and no one corrected me. That's what my mum does a lot, where I just get a word, so I take, and after my dad, I know that like he's always a charmer to the ladies, and he's got the gift to gab, and I think that's what people say I get from my dad. Like, I just can chat to anyone, but I enjoy chatting to people, I enjoy meeting people. Our families are big anyway, not as big as yours, Owen, but my extended family is in. I've got lots of cousins, lots of aunties and uncles on both sides. But I think for me, going back to what you said about, because you've all been quite open with your comparisons, I think for me, one of the biggest ones is actually being a gay man. Firstly, one is I don't really like labels, is in labeling myself into that bracket anyway, because I wouldn't class my sexuality as, ironically, as straight as just being gay. That, you know, just there are women that I found attractive. I've been with women before. It's just the kind of majority is men, and I just can't be bothered with breaking that down with people when I'm just meeting them in the pub. But for me, I've struggled with the comparison of what does gay mean, because like how so for example, if you, Owen, you said what dreadlocks meant. Well, gay people, when people go, oh, do you like RuPaul? I'm like, no, I don't like RuPaul. I don't think it's very good at all that we get people bitching about each other and moaning, when the people have the kind of stereotypes of gay people have been bitchy, moany anyway, and slagging people off. I said, but then I've always never fitted in. I always felt like I never fitted in because I'm not like uber camp, so like I wouldn't fit in with certain things, but I don't want to belittle what joy they're having and how it, you know. But so for me, when I grown up, I really compared with what gay was, because I struggled with fitting into, and it's only one of my coach that I go to every now and again said, because I was discussing this, and I said, I just feel like I don't fit in with like masculine and feminine. Like he said, like, because you know, I do like boy stuff, like I do like boy company and hang around boys and cars and stuff like that, but I also like the Barbie movie. Sorry, I quite liked it. I was shocked. Oh, look who it is! Look at that handsome devil. He's coming. But yeah, and so for me, and he said, and he sat there for this, and I explained all my comparisons. Like, I don't know where I fit. I don't think we're allowed to swear on this show, so I won't swear. But he just said it's because you live in an effed up version of what masculine and feminine is. He said, why is feminine pink? He said, why is masculine blue? Why is, and we kind of debated that. It made me kind of drop the comparisons as much, because I was just trying to drag myself over to a box that had been set by society, which I know we're sick of those words, but you know, that had been kind of constructed. That I was like, which one am I? And so for me, the biggest comparison I probably had in my life is that in sense of personally wise, if we're looking a bit deeper, that I didn't know where I fit. And it's something I still find a balance between, because I don't meet many gay men like me, in the sense that don't feel part of the scene. You know what I mean? I don't feel. I love it. I've got friends that are big parts of the scene. I just don't feel part of it. And then I compare myself, thinking, well, you know what I mean? Like, am I suppressing it? Am I, you know? So we've all got our own personal things there. I think that's probably mine. Like I said, I was opening up as we were chatting. I think that's probably.
Well, it's one of the things you were saying there, Ben. It's with me growing up in school in particular, is that I hung around with a lot of the people that are now either that are gay and that are now married and everything else. And I used to be, as we were talking before about labels, I was labeled as being gay, and it wasn't the fact, you know, obviously, well, not obviously, but I'm not gay. But the thing is that I was with these people is because we were separate. We were separate to everybody else. We were outcast in a sense from the society at that time. We're talking the late 70s, early 80s. So I found myself comfortable in the company of my now gay friends because we were separate to everybody else. We were ostracized from the society that we were growing up in. My family at the time when I was at school, we were the only black family in the village. So, it was that kind of thing, is that we were separated from everybody else because of our differences. Mine was my skin color, and my friends is because of their sexuality or whichever way they lent towards. So that was my upbringing, and how I got around it, because I in fact I felt even more comfortable in their company because they understood me more.
Yeah.
Because of the struggles that they went through, as with myself, with my skin color.
I love where this is going, and I just want to say something before I bring in lovely Carl, who also has crinkly eyes, and sometimes Benny says to me, "Nothing's that funny."
Laughter lines. That's a Les Dawson.
I blame you, Carl, because we've laughed a lot together. So I think these are your.
Oh my god!
Laughter lines. You've got them. Right.
Do you know what? I think if I was gay, Ben, I would be gay like you in that way. I don't think I'd fit in, because I find any kind of label really debilitating. I find it really hard because I never fit in, and I don't really fit in the sort of hippie community, because I don't really. Well, in some of my beliefs, I do.
I'm labelling you.
In some of my beliefs, I do, but I don't necessarily look like a hippie. And wherever I've gone, I've just never felt like I've fitted in. And I've really enjoyed not fitting in as well. Because there's a responsibility. You have to kind of keep up with the identikit of the identity you've got. And I've never really done that.
But that's living up to other people's expectations as well, isn't it?
If I look like anything or identify with anything, it's just that I'm a married housewife. I just look like a housewife wherever I go.
In different thing though, is it what brings, I think, people together, and I think in is this, like you said, or with your story, is when we're vulnerable, when we break down these like facades and these like puppets we wear without realizing we wear them, we just put on them when we're younger, we don't even realize they're on us. Is that kind of, or the authenticity is what brings us really together, isn't it? Actually, being honest, I don't know where I fit in, or actually I feel quite scared, or actually I feel quite lonely. These are things that I think we kind of that genuinely bring people together. And I think that's where we're coming towards now with shows like this and people doing the work that we're doing, and we may not have millions of followers, but I think the truth is we've got to start from our own communities and the people that are around us, making the changes now. Not that I'm like Mother Teresa, I know it all, but the thing is, we look out there, and that's when the comparison, again, going back to that word of like, oh my God, so that person's had 1 million views and they've done this and done that and they've helped all these people. But yeah, fair play and amazing, and they've had views all around the world. But actually, I think what the real work now is us just living our authentic lives within where we are. Because like you said, Owen, where I live, I call it very white and straight. They're not. I wouldn't like when I go to Manchester. I just like to be like, the multiculturalism, the everyone's just who they are. It's so refreshing. Now, if I walk down, like I would struggle probably to walk down the street holding my hands with a partner in some of the towns locally to me. Maybe one of the two towns I'd feel a bit comfortable snuggling in a pub. I could do that. Manchester wouldn't care. Now that's just interesting, just from my point of view, saying that out loud, that we still have that I'm still questioning, like, should I? Would I? Like, and it's something that we are breaking down bit by bit. And I think it's just, but like I said, I could tell the difference in towns and cities when I go. Same with Bristol, same with London. It just feels totally different. And like you said, Louisa, about going then to come back. And I think what I really want to do is try to be that here. And I'm working through my stuff and the triggers here so I can feel more comfortable. And I definitely, within the year, I definitely feel more comfortable than I did. Because I'm trying to make the change here rather than trying to go away and fix it, then come back. So I'm just going to be here where I am. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh, we're all giving hearts to each other.
I don't know if I can do that.
Speaking of hearts, you've joined us, so I'm guessing you'd like to. So I'm guessing you've got something you'd like to share with us.
Well, yeah, just resonating. Stop it. Yeah. What about that one? You used to do that one at school.
Which one? I can't.
Yeah.
If you're listening in via via
We'll
podcast,
do some pictures for you.
Yeah,
We'll put
we've
pictures
just
up
all
on
done
Instagram.
little hand gestures.
Inappropriate hand, like
It wasn't here's the church, here's the steeple.
We're all just being very
I
silly,
was resonating a lot with what's been said. I did
Yeah.
a bit of post-production from this morning and getting distracted massively again, and then had to come and join in. And for me, the theme is this: what gets missed by the strategies we create. So I think I'm in familiar company in making a decision early on in life that I wasn't going to play the relativity game, like you were saying, Owen. I'm not like the other family or boys or whatever. I think I was quite a disappointment to my dad at first in terms of not being interested in. He took me to see a Chelsea versus Man United at Stamford Bridge, Peter Bonetti's testimonial. So you can imagine the atmosphere at that, right? I was bored out of my brain. I wanted to die shortly before half time, and then realised there was another section of it to go. And I managed to make pretty good terms with my dad in the end, but I was not his idea of what a regular lad would be like. And I failed my mum's expectation of me becoming the Prime Minister of England. So the influences were there to react against, and the choice I took was like, okay, I'm not going to play the comparison game. I'm not going. The only way I'm going to compare myself to everybody else is how crap all the rest of them are with their superficial and shallow values and interests. I am different, special, etc., chosen one, and I'm not going to get involved in these silly games. And what I've realised as I get older, with everything, all the other survival strategies I've got, is they have a cost as well.
Yeah.
It is good to survive, no question about it. I'm not knocking survival. It's quite good to have survival strategies, and they cost you. And that's what I think the beauty of older life is, that you can begin to unpack how you survived and what you missed by not being like I was never in teams.
Yeah.
To avoid being compared and to avoid failure, I didn't join teams. I became my own man, and did my own thing, and became eccentric and different, and went to the clubs. It sounds like you went to as well. The clubs I went to, it was a black community, gay community, alternative community, and it was it was good to belong to a place where no one felt they belonged to anything, because they were different to everybody else. But they were
there was no judgment. There's no judgment as well. I mean, even just going back to that as well, is that it was my mum that was with me all the time when if I was in a play, if I went to a TV audition and things like that, and she supported me all the way through. And she very rarely went to any of the sporting events that my brothers and sisters were in. But I tell you something, in the last, when I was on GMP and I was doing the cooking slots, my dad watched every single one I did on replay.
Brilliant.
And he actually came down to me and he said, "That was great. That was great. Your mum would have been proud."
Oh, how lovely.
So that was a nice thing for me to hear, that it finally switched off. He finally come to terms that I was never going to be a sporty, although I did play basketball, but he was quite pleased that I continued to pursue something that he knew that my mum enjoyed.
Yeah.
And also I enjoyed, So it was nice to hear him say, "Yes, I watched it. It was really good. But do you have to cook Jamaican food?" He said.
There's always something, isn't there? Yeah, always. A bit like that. Yeah, really good, but don't let your head get too big.
Yes, but that was really, really nice for him to turn around and give me that kind of compliment, really, and to say that he was proud of me for doing it. So that was really nice.
Yeah. Yes.
See, at the risk of repeating myself, which I'm going to do now, I go to the gym. I've started becoming more physical, and that I don't know if it is a cost, but the reason I've only just started going to the gym at 58 is because I had it in that box of what other people do. Comparing myself to other people and creating my own defense mechanism, I wouldn't do what they would do because I could stay special and different if I didn't. And that's I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it. I cut myself off from the possible enjoyment doing that as well. And I think that's an important consideration in this sort of, well, it's not directly comparison, but it's like, that's what happened to me with avoiding comparison and competition out of being terrified of it, basically, and not wanting to fail. I got rid of all of it. It was the baby out with the bathwater. I remember just making one comparison. I remember sort of latching on to a sort of a teenage role model, a peer in my school, and this kid was really eccentric and weird. And I thought, if I did that, then I could be my own person. He's his own guy. So I became different by copying somebody. Thought, I'll be different like he is, because that's what we do, isn't it? It's natural. It's completely. It's our go-to as humans. I think we do compare, like you said, Ben, at the beginning. We can't help it. It's part of our mechanism. And I was wondering, in the growth of consciousness and the expansion of human consciousness, which I think this program is about in many ways, it's not that we're moving bandwidth, because it's like we're never going to detach from those animalistic lizard impulses. If we're lucky, we'll just grow extra layers, won't we? And a bigger awareness on top of it, and catch ourselves and see ourselves doing these things, rather than, in many ways, our sort of new agey selves would be like, well, we're not lizards anymore. We hate lizards. David told us not to like lizards. We don't judge. We never judge anybody. And we don't do all of these animal things that we have suffered from being the subject of ourselves. So we don't do that anymore. And it's rubbish, isn't it? We cannot not be animals and lizards as part of our being, as in terms of our, the engine that drives us as human beings. But we definitely can build some better structures or extra facilities, like a car, the standard car, but we can add rubber mats and go faster stripes and build a bigger consciousness on top of the standard model.
I think as well, it's going back to the thing of balance, isn't it? You've obviously, when you were younger, so I'm getting my fingers in the screen, like obviously didn't want to fit in. So then you're like, right, well, I'm not going to be this, I'm going to be this. So then you were then created a kind of, weirdly, a kind of identity on the other side of the spectrum. Where you're like, I want to be out there, so I don't want to go to the gym because that's what they do. Even though you might have enjoyed going to the gym. I think everything is, like I said, we'll find this balance. And I think that is what we're doing at the moment. And I honestly feel like, so this movement of this like show and similar is so many people feel this disconnection with their identity of what they think they are. And I think that is the kind of true good. I don't think the word pandemic is the worst word, but the pandemic of realization of this. So many people I know are questioning who they are, what they do, why they're doing it, and people that are outside the spiritual realm. I think with the spiritual realm, all we did exactly, well, oh no, there we don't do that, and spiritual we don't judge, and we then gone to the old polar opposite. But then that's unnatural, because we can't. Then we're kicking ourselves, then we are judging, and then we're judging ourselves for not judging, and of course we. It's all about equilibrium, isn't it? I think that's where you're saying that. What I'm loving seeing around is people realizing that they're questioning that, and that's what the youth are doing. That's what I like about the youth. The youth, when I talk, just to some context, Owen, I used to teach in a college, so I taught 16 to 19-year-olds for like 9 years, and seeing them come through. Of course, there were still some people with archaic opinions about certain things, but generally they didn't really care what gender you were. Generally, they didn't really care sexuality, because there's always someone gay or bi in their class or try, and that is a new energy coming forward, where that will become the tipping point where it doesn't really matter, and they don't want to fit in. They don't read the Daily Mail. They don't. So for me, it's just that I think we're finding that. Not that we were ahead of anyone else, but we probably felt it earlier more potently. So we fought against the system. Yeah. But I think a lot of people, Carl, have probably felt very similar to when they were at school. That they just did get in that box, and then later on in life probably caused more issues, possibly. But I think it's just now people people realizing that.
Yeah, there's no avoiding issues, is there? No. Because the other people in school are all facing their survival strategies in one way or another, aren't they? I'm not saying that's special. I'm saying it's like I just did it in a different way to the mainstream, if you like. And this is what we're seeing. I think what you were suggesting there is it's not a spiritual matter, is it? It's a human matter.
Yeah.
That people, whatever position they took at school, will be feeling where that worked for them and where it didn't work. And if it's not, and the older you get, when something's not working well for you, the harder it is, I think. There is that, isn't there? It's like a stone in your shoe. What works for you and you can finesse really works by definition. and the character traits that you develop as survival strategies that cost you and are dysfunction in some way just hurt more and more, I think, the older you get.
Yeah. Going back to your football analogy, is that say like people that say if your friends did like the football, oh, I love the football. So they become identified with that, which is understandable because they genuinely have an enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
What's normally under football is, this has been very general here, but generally it's like toxic masculinity where you don't talk, lads, banter. So if someone was gay in that circle, or if someone was sensitive or having some mental health issues, it'd be harder for them to talk about it with that identity because that's what boys don't do. I know it's very general and very archaic, but what I'm saying is like I said, they're probably people unpacking mental health issues in their 40s and 50s because they've never really talked, they've never done it before. So I think it is. You're
right, Ben. I was watching the rugby and football. I was in a bar where you could watch rugby and football at the same time. That's not me. I've become that guy more recently, and I was there meeting a couple of older guys. And it's so brilliant because a lot of older guy conversation now is showing you memes on their phone and them saying, you can't say that anymore. And
yeah.
I say, show me more. I said, that's hilarious. You can't say that anymore. You can't say that. And then they were telling me stories of all the times they said stuff that they shouldn't be saying anymore. And I was thinking, hold on a minute. This whole sort of woke bashing thing is about you feeling upset about not saying stuff anymore. But you've just told me 10 stories about how you keep saying it to people.
Oh my. Right. It's actually 11 o'clock. So I'm okay to keep this going for another quarter of an hour. If everyone else is, feel free to dash out if you want. But there's lots coming up. And I really do want to pay some attention to some of the brilliance that has come in from the chat room. So we've got a couple of questions and thinking points from Sarah's energetics, which I think are really valuable. So Sarah says, could you discuss how being inspired by someone is not the same as comparing yourself to them? Carl, perhaps your high school friend just inspired you to be more of you. So I think that's one fantastic point about inspiration. But then Sarah goes on, or actually she said this before, but she said, what comparisons are we using that if we dropped them all would allow us to be the gift that we truly bring?
Could I
amazing.
On that? With that one alone, I mean, I've just recently on a massive poetry drive. I'm writing an awful lot at the moment, and I actually wrote something the other day which was about myself and about not wanting to smile all the time because that's not the true me, and you need to get to know the true me. And I think that's the thing about it, is that people have an expectation of who you are, and what you should be. And I actually wrote that poem to make my stance really, is that, at the end of the day, I am my own individual person, and I will be who I want to be. And I don't have to smile all the time. I don't have to be Mr. Happy. So it's one of those, I'm trying to be the best version of me I possibly can. But in order for me to do that, I have to drop the stereotypes and the comparisons as well that people are making of me.
Is it possible that comes from making other people comfortable? Because you would assume, wouldn't you, in the first instance, that smiling all the time? Because I've got a similar sort of habit of being affable and pleasant to be around. Because it wasn't good not to be. I mean, I dropped that at Mrs. N. That's why I think she's laughing.
Yeah, because he's real miserable.
With all this testosterone coursing through my body at the moment from going to the gym, I can be a really grumpy, moody bastard at the moment.
Yeah, he's having these testosterone
I'm quite enjoying
spikes.
it. I'm quite enjoying it
too.
I'm quite enjoying not having or not. It's not about having to, because it's me that's doing it. But that childhood facility of having everyone else be okay, so appear okay yourself, is possibly what you're talking about there, Owen. I mean, I think you and I share a lot of strategies, don't we, in life about being.
I would love to turn around and be Mr. Nasty, rather than going, just turn around and say.
Do that again. That was great.
Sometimes, you get into a situation and you appease people. And you go, yeah. Where actually sometimes I'd like to say, no, actually, I think that's shit.
Yeah.
Just to come out, and I suppose it would surprise a lot of people.
It would, yeah.
But then again, that is who I really truly want to be, rather than appeasing everybody all the time and give my true opinion of what I actually feel. And I think I've hidden behind that for a long, long time. The biggest song, Carl, as we know, Smokey Robinson, Tears of a Clown.
Yeah. It's an amazing song, and it appeals to people, doesn't it? You put on a break, the Krusty the Clown sort of routine. When you say that, you know, you don't want to do that, or you do want to do that, as in, you know, be straight with people and say that's just what I'm interested in. Is I don't think it's that you want to be nasty to people; it's that you don't want to be nasty to yourself in a way by not being true. Yeah. Is that the distinction?
Yeah, I don't want people to have a true balance of who I am, rather than having this positive, you know, always positive, never down, never a dull moment. You know, I want them to see that other side of me as well, you know?
I find that fascinating, because to me, that's the great misunderstanding of radical honesty, is some people like that book because they think to themselves, I can just tell everyone what a twat they are. And this book's going to show me how to do it and not have to face any consequences of doing it. But what it's really about is self-honesty, isn't it? And like owning things. And like, you know, I think when you said to someone, that's just shit, it's like, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable and safe to say now that is crap. To me, it's crap. Not your crap, not because you think that you're crap. I think I about this thing, I own the fact, and I'm gonna make take a bit of a departure here and say that, because normally, what version of me do you want? Do you want the person who just agrees with you so as to survive, or do you want me to be honest with you? And most people are going to want an honest friend, aren't they? And the ones who don't, you probably might not want to be friends with anymore.
One thing you missed out from there, if you don't mind me saying, and I'm also writing, which version of me do you want today? Because I'm going to be using that.
Oh no,
it's quite useful.
Hoist on your own petard.
Yeah, absolutely. But Brad Blanton, that talks about radical honesty, he also says, yes, you can absolutely be yourself and be completely honest, but you stick around to clear up the mess, and that's a really important part of the process. So you know, so you absolutely get to have the beautiful vulnerability that comes with honesty, but
not just a dump. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're not just dumping.
I think the key is, exactly that. I think what society is missing, I feel, and I think Russell Brand talked about it a lot in one of his books, is the idea of true authenticity. That's what we're missing. So I think sometimes, like using Owen's example of where he says, oh, that shit. Yeah. Probably that's a part of internal, it's not obviously dissecting Owen, I'm sure I don't mean this personally, but I mean just generally, is where he suppressed that honesty, where it might just burst out with that shit. Yes. And I think, you know what I mean? Where if we just been honest, like, actually, I don't really, if we would have let a bit of it out earlier, and I'm similar to him, so I'm similar to
I think we all are.
Yeah. And I've got more, but what's interesting, when you're more honest, you do have more authentic relationships and friendships, definitely. You know, but it is about that balance. And I think and we all want it. And I think that's what we're finding. We're finding these old paradigms and structures, you know, mentally and physically, that aren't really working. And we're realizing that actually being honest, especially blokes, like, you know, a lot of my mates being, we always say I'm a bit fluffier, being a lot of my mates are straight. So obviously a lot of them have got kids, you know, married. We've had lots of discussions where we've ended up crying, or we've been upset by opening up to each other about something. So actually it just takes one. And as soon as one is like authentic, it's like a gasp of oxygen. You're like, oh, great, we're not talking about X Factor. Great. Oh, we're not talking about the weather. Oh, like, do you know what I mean? I think that's where it becomes intoxicating. The only way I can describe it is when I first come out and I first started telling people, that feeling when I told people and I could be myself around them, it just felt so freeing that I felt very hard to be around people I hadn't told. And that's, I think that's similar to authenticity. And it's basically authenticity, isn't it? And as we are being honest, like you were saying, Owen, like, you know, telling people like that shit, when you feel you can do that, you think, oh, I can be myself around this person. Oh my God. And it just feels so invigorating. And you know, and that's probably why we feel so drained by relationships. So many people think they're introverts. It's because we're trying to force ourselves into conversations and discussions, interactions that aren't really authentic. If they were authentic, would there be less introverts? Possibly. Maybe they're just more sensitive to the bullshit. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, I might want to spend more time around people if I felt I could be myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you feel better for it, don't you? Even though, quote, you're being negative, which you're not. You're being authentic. That's the difference.
Yes. I love that. we really do have loads of comments coming in. Some of them going back like half an hour or so. So Squire of the Shires, talking about dreadlock rasta, that brings back memories. Used to have a similar style, only short spiky ones though.
Funky dread.
When I was a young man with complimentary head full of multicolour laggy bands, the things we did. Definitely. He's saying a bit of a rebel MC. Pete's you'll have to send us a photo. I'd love to see that. Pete's saying one of the funniest experiences we ever had was at customs at Schiphol airport, where a white dreadlock guy had to remove his hat after a much hassle from customs.
That's a Benny Hill sketch, isn't it?
Revealing a shiny head and fake dreads. Poor guy. That must be so hard. Gillian's joining us from Scotland, saying a bit tardy, but Louisa, you're way too glamorous to be just a housewife. Bless you. And not sure there is such a thing as just in that context or anywhere. Bless you so much for saying that. I still enjoy it anyway. She's always also saying staying special is such a thing. Squire of the Shires is also saying your live cooking shows were great, Owen.
Thank you.
And Gillian's also saying, I'm glad I never followed the crowd. I never started smoking for that reason.
But maybe you should start now, Gillian, because smoking is really unpopular now.
Well, she's going to be on the show later on this week.
Smoking, like
yeah. I'm so mercurial. I doubt anyone knows what to expect from me. I'm certainly not going to clip myself to make others all comfortable. Well, we'll find out how you are on Friday.
I'm
Gillian.
scared already. Looking forward to that, Gillian.
Yeah, it'll be good. So we're kind of wrapping this up a little bit. What other things are?
Well, that was that question from Sarah about the difference between being inspired and copying people. So you could say that. Yeah, you could like I was really inspired by Russell Brand, or I think it's who can I say that's not going to trigger people? I was really inspired by the Dalai Lama. Oh no, you can't say him anymore. I was really inspired by David Icke. Definitely not him. I was really inspired by Russell Brand. No, not right now. Anyway, I was inspired by an inspiring person, and the other person can say, well, you're just copying them. And it's really good. It's a very good distinction, that, isn't it?
But is he, just interrupt, Carl, is a question, are you inspired by someone? Are they triggering that something in you?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I think what Sarah's referring to is the kid at my school. I remember the day. It was we were out on the sports field. For some reason, we were out on the sports field. It's probably because we were smoking, not playing sport. Yeah. In a little corner of the sports field. And this kid, Justin Sweetingham, if you ever see this, I owe you. Well, actually, I owe you a sort of lifetime debt because you helped me. But you've also robbed me, you bastard, by being inauthentic, by pretending to be you and not myself. But anyway, there he was. He was barefoot, and he had his school uniform on barefoot. He took his tie off and wrapped it around his head like he was, like he had a Rambo bandana on. And he was running around being like a very different, eccentric guy. And I thought, he's nailed it. That's how to be yourself in this awful atmosphere. I used to hate school from that point of view. It's like a savage.
It's like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, sort of survival atmosphere. He did something there which I thought was great. I could do that. I'll just be not like everybody else. I'll not try and fit in anymore. I think that was it. I think that was the day where I thought, I'm going to not fit in now. He's not fitting in. He's getting away with it. I am not going to fit in either. So he inspired me, for sure. And it is a thin line. But I suppose the only way you know is whether it's helping you or harming you. If you copy people and it's not authentic, that will harm you in the end, I think. It will go against, it will be difficult. It will be hard to keep up. If you're inspired and you make it your own, that will be healthy and helpful, I think. It's a difference.
I can say that I was inspired. If I go back to New Year's Eve, 1989, Contact Theatre in Manchester. It was a New Year's Eve party. And I was just basically told, carry on being you and carry on being funny. And that was told to me by Rick Mayo.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Cool. Carry on being you and carry on being and keep being funny. And it was great. Absolutely great. And I do think about every time I see actually his face or whatever on screen or any of the stuff that he did, I always think back to that part.
I will as well now, Owen, and I want to ask you why it is I didn't know anything about. Yeah. Sorry if this is a bit personal, I'm putting you on the spot, but why do I thinking I know you fairly well, do I know not? I've never heard that before, and I've never heard about your treading the boards, being
Yeah.
a performer.
I was actually an understudy for Coronation Street for quite some time as well, but that's another time.
Yeah.
But why is it not this time? I mean, is that
Like Ben?
is
Ben
that,
is
is
a
that
massive.
the
You're a
authentic?
thespian, aren't you, Ben? You love the old theatre, don't you?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, obviously, wrapping up after Owen, yeah, I do a bit of musical theatre just for the joy of it. And I've just been in a little short film that's out in a couple of weeks. So it's a short, yeah. So just for the joy of it, like, I just love doing it. And I just, like I said, it was something I just found a passion for, but I didn't do when I was younger because people took the mick out of it. Like, and then
we do have the Ponta de Lima Players. Just started up here in northern Portugal. And we were going to do a pantomime this year, but we're going to...
you weren't.
But I'm actually going to be acting. I'm going to be directing.
Are you? Oh, that's great.
You're going to direct the panto or whatever production they do?
Yeah. That's one thing I haven't done. I've done stage work. I've been, front of house. I've been on the stage, everything else, but I've never done the directing side of it. So that's what I'm looking forward to next year.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, amazing.
We've got a comment coming in from Sarah's Energetic saying, Owen, when you smile, the whole world lights up. So,
yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. I've had quite a time of it, over the last week or so, but I know the reasons for that. And Louisa, we've just gone through an equinox, haven't we?
It's coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, so this is the reason why I feel I've been the way I've been feeling. But I can see that light of the tunnel, end of the tunnel is just there. And things are getting better within myself. So everything's
fantastic.
I want to see this.
I
want to see your thespian. I just that sounds so right. I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah.
Well, we did. I did a panto of Jack and the Beanstalk at the Hebden Bridge Little Theatre. It's well known.
Panto's awesome.
Oh.
I played the part of the goose that laid the golden egg, and it actually hit the newspaper headlines, the local newspaper headlines. Golden goose does moonwalk. So me being a golden goose costume, actually do the moonwalk on stage. But yes, that's for another time.
Oh wow!
Oh man,
what a theatrical start to the week. I'm the missing link here. I haven't been on TV or anything. You've been on Top of the Pops, Ben.
And Panto, I love Panto.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've been on Panto.
Two
quite
pantomimes. Yeah, bloody love that.
Oh my god. So I feel a little bit unqualified. I feel like the understudy here. Just making sure everything goes according to plan.
Darling, you should try it. It's marvelous.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. You should do.
Following on Sarah's amazing question about inspiration. How do I know when I'm being inspired by somebody as opposed to comparing myself? I think it's because I actually don't compare myself to them. Or if I do, it's in a really different way. There's a different quality to it. So there's quite a few people that I'm really inspired by. And they are people who I think are magnificent elders. I get really inspired by them. So I feel inspired by this guy called Lonnie, who may not want to be described as an elder, but our friends Dee and Mike, who are on the show, Rick, who's on the show quite a lot, and people that I think really live by their values. I'm massively inspired by people like that. And I never really feel like I need to compare myself to them.
Can I point out as well, though, that you get really mad when people of a similar, a reflection, got massive YouTube channels or whatever. That's part of, and I'm not doing that to shame or embarrass you.
Aren't you?
No, I'm not. I because I'm the same.
Yeah.
The two things. Another powerful, as well as this latest gym thing, was boxing.
Yeah,
like doing boxing and actually doing something I thought I would never do because I just found myself in a position to do it, and like competing face to face. I mean, there's no sort of more challenging competition than someone want to punch you in the face for a minute standing opposite you. You have to keep moving, and it's really real. I think I think this whole thing about rejecting comparison. If that's what we do, like I owned being an underachiever, I reject comparison as well because I don't want to get the results of comparing myself.
Right. Okay. I think I was trying to work out why you were bringing that up as an example.
Yeah.
You're making the point that I don't feel like I'm compared to people when I'm comparing myself to people that I can't be compared with.
Yeah, there is
So
that, and then
that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, and I really honestly don't mean it as an embarrassment, because
It did sound like an insult.
I didn't put it very well, but that's just my testosterone making me a bit clumsy at the moment. But
he's right.
I own it with you.
Yeah,
I do a slightly different approach to everything, so I don't get compared with the people who are really good at it.
Yeah.
That's the truth of avoiding comparison sometimes.
I mean, I really love elders because I one day believe I'm going to be an elder, and I think of myself as an elder in training. And so I have these really idealistic and beautiful relationships with people who are really being their value and really being who they are. And I see them really living their life like that as well. Not like some coach that is on like talking about positivity and then they come off stage or go back, and then they're like swigging on a bottle of wine.
Like that Deepak Chopra bloke.
Well, we've all done things like that, we've all been not 100% ourselves, but the people that I really like are the ones that really do put themselves through that inquiry, and so I find it really easy to admire them and be inspired by them, because probably I'm not in direct competition with them.
Yeah.
But every now and again, I do see like people that do astrological content that's really, really similar to mine. Not that either of us are copying each other. I mean, these people won't have even seen me probably, because they've got hundreds of thousands of supporters, and I've got like 1,000. And in those situations, I do think, what are they doing differently? And I do beat myself up quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'll look at the
I beat
tags.
the other person up though. I look at other people's podcasts, and he's like, I think, God, he's terrible, and he's got 6 gazillion followers. He's crap. Instead of thinking like, why haven't I? I just go straight for knocking the other guy. It's the other way of doing it.
I don't do that. I look at it, then I ask myself the same question: why has this person got so many? But what I've come to realize is, whilst it can be useful to ask that question, because you can get some good quality information which you can work with, and I'm not against doing that. What I've noticed recently, and I also heard it in a recent podcast with Dr. Dane here, he said something to the effect of, when you ask yourself a question with a why, it's nearly always because you're comparing yourself to somebody. Like the answer to the why question is like, why has this person got this and I haven't? You're always going to come up with answers that are sort of backing up where you want to pull your socks up, which can be useful. But if you're not just taking it as information, if you're taking it as a
personal attack
to beat yourself up with, it could be really negative.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do about that. I don't know if I had a massive channel like that, would I be able to manage it really well? Who knows? Would it give me the lifestyle I want? I don't know. So who knows?
There's 2 things there. I want to say. One with the comparison thing. I remember reading this somewhere where wherever you are, there's always going to be someone, I can't think of a better word, better than you or worse than you. There's going to be someone with more subscribers, someone with less. Yeah. Someone's going to be thinner than you, someone's going to be bigger than you, someone's going to have more money, someone's going to have less money. And it just takes the pressure off then of whether you are along that spectrum, because you could look either way. But what I'd say with this, someone said to me once about the subscriber number. If you think of if I do a gig in a small cafe near me, it's got about 40 people in. When it's busy, it's really cool. I've been at Pontins where I performed in front of hundreds, and probably you have, Owen, as well, and you have where there's been hundreds.
I haven't.
Yeah, but if you've got that, but imagine 1,000 people in a room. That is where you've got to see it. And when you see that you've got 1,000 people that have chosen to subscribe to you, and then that might, for that visual, helped me with some of my stuff that I haven't got as many subscribers. But I think, well, actually, people that do enjoy it, and and if I put all them people in a room, 1,000 people is loads. And I think if you see it as that you've got 1,000, imagine them like sat in an arena that have signed up to Louisa Carl Munson. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. But if you see it like that, then you see 1,000's a good number. Yes. And that if you see them in front of you in the venue, that they've gone, oh, I like her, I've subscribed to her, I want to listen to her. Yeah. It feels a lot more than when we're looking at, again, the comparison, perfect word, to like people that have got 1.2 million subscribers. And would you want that many? That's the truth, would we?
Yeah. Probably not.
I would.
But but what I'm saying, if you see as the visuals people stood in front of you, then I think it makes.
Yeah.
True. Well, yeah.
It's a really interesting subject, and I think it's one that could keep on going and going and going. I just want to, thanks for that, Ben. I just want to go to the end of the comments and a quick like, let's round it up. And then I think it's time to go, mainly because I've got a massage to go to.
What?
Yes, I'm going to a massage very soon. So I need to like chop, busy. This is like part of my new routine is that I'm actually going to do a bit of self-love. So it's
Good for you. I'm just comparing myself unfavorably to your situation.
So where are we going? Okay, so Gillian is going to practice and see if she can get into chain smoking for Friday.
Yeah.
Rick Mail, legend.
Absolutely.
Owen, when you smell, we've done that one, but you light up the room. Excellent.
Are you sure this top that I'm wearing?
It's really nice.
Oh, sunshine personified.
Yeah, I did think that actually. It's like sort of Ben and you are in sunshine colours, and I've got.
Do you know what? I nearly wore yellow.
You should have done.
Do you know what? I almost wore yellow today, but it was on my skirt. So anyway, this is such a great show. Thank you, Gillian.
Yeah,
and
cheers.
she's saying, when someone has masses of subscribers, I start wondering whether they are real or what's going on. I think there is a bit of that going on.
Let's talk about that in a few years' time, Gillian, and you can check.
So anyway, I'd like to thank everyone that's joined us today for their comments, their love, their support, and also sort of co-creating and laughing along with us. This is what it's all about.
And you know what? What's great is this show, this process has to do that same thing that goes from the basic mechanistic lizard part of that's our starting point. And if humanity is to be superimposing or growing in consciousness, you do that from a standing start at 10:05. It starts where we're at, doesn't it? In the big agreement of society, which let's face it, is quite rational, mechanistic, lizard-like, and it takes people to open their mouths and people to engage for the conversation and the energy to expand. You can't start that at 10:05. It has to grow into that. It has to grow into that. So I take my hat off to you for putting yourself in that position of holding the space in which it can go from being a cold lizard of a thing into a multifunctional 7-dimensional creature in an hour and a half.
I love that. Well, I think we've all done it really, really well.
How many dimensions did we get to this morning?
I don't know. I think about 13.
Is Owen? Is it going to be me and Owen? Are we going to be like Monday morning buddies?
If you want to.
Oh, because it's every 2 weeks, isn't it? I didn't know if it was...
No. I mean, it's however it works out, because like sometimes people might want to swap days. I know Owen wants to be on with Rick at some point as well, and I'm sure you'd get on with quite well with Rick as well. But I mean, it's up to you guys. I'm just really happy. However,
I'm happy to be on whenever.
Yeah, I am as well. It's just good fun.
Yeah, it is. It's nice, isn't it, to have a few of us? In fact, Gillian is saying, oh no, hang on, where is it? Thanks for the laughs and the great chats. Squire of the Shires is saying, after a shed load of rain over the weekend, the sun looks a good day for a venture to the chippy. That sounds great. Yeah. And then the river, maybe a spot of fishing plus carving some floats and bits.
Nice.
That sounds
great. Do some fishing this afternoon. I think I might do that.
Sponduli, hello, Sponduli is saying wash hands.
Do we know Sponduli?
No, I don't, but thank you.
Hi, it's my friend from the UK. Hi, Julie.
Sponduli Julie, thanks for joining us. Anne-Marie Miner is saying a beautiful show as always. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Anne-Marie. Happy birthday for tomorrow, Anne-Marie.
And Gillian is saying that would be brilliant to have this as a regular. Oh, there you go. You know, there's Gillian. She wants to see you two together. Anyway,
we'll coordinate colours next time. It was yellow or orange. I was like, oh, I'll go with orange.
Well, let me know too.
But you know as well, they won't have to ring each other. They'll just tune in. Across the.
All right. Well, it's been lighthearted. It's been fun. Thanks so much. If you want to carry on having this conversation, then please go to school.com/feelgoodastrology. There's a bit of a community there, and you can go in and we can carry on gassing. But if not, all of our details are below in the show notes. So hopefully we'll catch you another time. Boys, men, gents, thank you so much. It's been great. And lots of
Louisa, thank you for giving this platform to us. I really need to thank you. I just turn up on a Monday and it's all set up. So thank you very much. I appreciate your ethos and where it's going. So thank you.
Oh, bless you. Well, I must appreciate Carl then, because without you, this wouldn't have happened.
And Ben from back in the day.
Back
Come
in the
on.
day.
Yeah.
You know, this is all going round
is.
and round. You know, we've all worked with each other many times before, and that's how it happens.
Yeah.
So I remember that video of that bit of audio of you and Carl laughing for about 2 minutes.
The real Slim Stubbsy.
Oh my God. I got so angry. He played it over and over, this like 1 minute track of you two wetting yourself. I got angry.
It's because the days of Blog Talk, it was awful signal. So Jay would be giving some sort of like some really good advice, and it'd just be and we'd just be howling.
I know.
Yeah, or it always sounded like farting noises for some reason, but
that's all that was needed to get us going.
Because once one of us started, the other one would start. That was it. Just laughter.
We'll have to see if we can find that. It's on a hard drive somewhere.
I've got it. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I think I've got it somewhere. I have to really find it.
Yeah, there's also a clip of me and Jay talking, and I was.
You thought you weren't on air.
Oh, I thought I wasn't. This was back in the Blog Talk radio days.
Hot mic action, it was.
I don't remember that one. What happened?
I thought Carl and I had just met, and we'd been out drinking, and I thought I'd come off the show by accident. And so Jay, who's also somebody who presents here, Jay was running the show on her own, and so she was still doing the radio. But I didn't realize she could still hear me, but I couldn't hear her. And so I was talking to Carl and saying, "Oh, I'm so drunk.
I just sound like a silly hippie.
I just sound like a silly hippie." And I couldn't even talk properly. And Jay, who could hear it all and was knowing it was being broadcast, was saying, "Oh, Louisa, I don't think we can hear that. We can hear you." Bless her and bless you all. So, I mean, you know, this has been a project that has been coming on for ages, isn't it? You know, this started like 13 years ago, and it's just coming back up for air, coming back to life. To quote your,
I've got a picture of my nephew when I lived at my brother's for a bit when we were doing some Blog Talk, especially when it was me and Carl. And I've got a picture of him wearing my headphones, and now he's 15 with a girlfriend. Just the last time we did, when we first did it, he's got a picture of him with these like headphones on, following me on air. Yeah.
Well, let's see if we're still around in another 13 years' time. And
I'm sure we will be.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be. Anyway, lots and lots of love to everyone. Have a great Monday. And we'll see you again real soon.
Cheers, Pete. Yep.
Lots of love to everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.